As we roll under the start banner, we head up West Park, the wrong way. In real life, this is a one-way street and we'd be against traffic. But this is Zwift, so everything's fine. To the right, the Stray, the magnificent common land that encircles most of the town's centre. It's 200 acres in size and will never ever be built on. It's one of the things that makes Harrogate a great place to live. On the left of West Park there's a specialised shop stacked full of bikes, and there's a terrific deli called Wheaton's. Great food there and a good alternative to the always rammed Betty's. Turning right, we go up Otley Road. In Zwift, as in real life, this is a long straight drag that seems to go on forever. But the gradient is mainly very even, so it's a good stretch of road for intervals. Opposite a pub which used to be called the New Inn and is now strangely named So, is my old school, Harrogate Grammar, and if you turned right at this crossroads, you'd be going down Coldbath Road and back into the town centre. But we continue climbing. As the road steepens, you'll see an old water tower, and if you looked back over your shoulder, you'd get a good view of Harrogate as we've gained a surprising amount of height up this long drag. The start of the descent is pretty much the end of the built-up area around Harrogate, and we're out into the Yorkshire countryside. Even though there aren't really any of the characteristic dry stone walls that help make Yorkshire on this stretch of road for real, we can forgive Zwift the poetic licence here, because there are many, many, many miles of this ancient method of walling not too far away. On the right here, although not visible in the game, is the highly renowned Harlow Car Gardens. It's a sort of show garden, or series of gardens actually, run by the Royal Horticultural Society, and there is many a rare and beautiful plant to be seen. There's also a cafe with some first-class cakery, but the usual patrons of the gardens and cafe aren't cyclists, they're not terribly used to cyclists, and you might get a funny look or two. Where we turn right is the village of Beckwithshaw. You'd turn left here if you wanted to go. And another good pub, which happily hasn't changed its name to something silly, it's still the Smith's Arms, as it's always been. It's often said that Yorkshire people, like others in the UK, navigate using pubs as landmarks, and it's perfectly true. But we aren't going to the pub, we're heading for Potbank. We're now on the western edge of a very famous road race circuit called the Pennypot Circuit, which has been used for regional and national champs for many years. To the right is a lovely little village cricket ground, which I'm sort of surprised Zwift didn't put in the game. This is a really fast descent in real life and in Zwift. We hit a little chicane. Zwift has really softened this. In real life, it's much more severe with a twisty bend onto a narrow bridge. I guess the game designers needed to make it safe for large packs without Zwifters plummeting from the bridge. But if you look sharp, you can see some rocks to the left. I think these are a nod to the real rocky outcrop called Brimham Rocks a few miles distant. These ancient rocks are all kinds of weird and wonderful shapes and well worth a visit if you're in the area. We climb out of the Potbank Bridge through fields of purple flowers. Now, although Yorkshire moorland does turn a delicate shade of purple in autumn, I don't think that's the reference here. I think it's a reference to the magnificent rhododendron plantations, which you can see in the Pinewoods area of Harrogate. We'll be going through those shortly. The right turn takes us off the Pennypot circuit and orients us back toward the town centre. There's a bit of descent here to rest the legs before quite a significant climb. And an odd sign. I just can't work out why the word apothecary is on a road sign. Next up, and just before a stone bridge marking the start of the climb, is Zwift's tribute to a nearby World Heritage Site, the magnificent Fountains Abbey, an amazingly well-preserved Cistercian abbey. It's the most exquisite place in real life, and if Zwift's Yorkshire has inspired you to visit, make this amazing, tranquil place top of your list. The stone bridge over Oak Beck has been sort of Zwiftified, but it's not a million miles away from the real thing. The bridge is so narrow that it's controlled by traffic lights, and in real life, you often find yourself trying to time your descent to hit a green, so you get a bit of a head start on the climb. What Zwift has made the KOM is relatively short as Yorkshire climbs go, but it's plenty steep enough. And in real life, it always comes at the end of a ride, so it's a good spot for a last hard effort, or a good spot to crawl in slowly, depending on how long or hard your ride's been. Oddly enough, there's no Strava segment in real life that corresponds exactly to the Zwift KOM, so I can't measure my time in Zwift versus real life, but for sure it feels to me as though it's a very accurate representation of this stretch of road. As we pass through the banner, it's left and down Harlow Moor Drive. On your left now are the famous Pinewoods, where those rhododendrons hang out. Zwift has got the architecture of this street absolutely nailed. It's uncannily like the real thing. After the roundabout, Harlow Moor Drive becomes Valley Drive, and still on the left, the slightly wilder Pinewoods become the more manicured and very tranquil Valley Gardens, a lovely place for a stroll and an ice cream. The hard left passes the pump room on your right, the building which protects one of the sources of the famous Harrogate waters. The town became very wealthy in the 18th and 19th centuries, dispensing these waters as cures to visitors who thought their properties could heal their ailments. Until relatively recently, there was a hospital which still used some fairly wacky treatments for conditions like arthritis, and that's on the road we're now on. We're now well into the Duchy Estate, a prime residential area which really does justify the use of that estate agent's cliché, sought after. This is a very desirable area. All the land is owned by the Duchy of Lancaster, oddly for Yorkshire, and the Duke of Lancaster is actually the Queen, which is also a bit odd. The main roads through this section, Cornwall Road and Kent Road, are also named for dukes. Again, it's worth remarking here that the work Zwift artists have put into the architecture is certainly appreciated by me. It's really quite accurate and definitely conveys the feel and the atmosphere of this part of Harrogate extremely well. Sweeping out of the Duchy Estate via right onto Ripon Road, there's a little descent. Before another right and a second pass of the pump room, which is now a museum. On the left is another pub of note. It's called Hales Bar and used to be lit entirely with gas lamps. I haven't been in for ages, so I don't know if that's still the case. Rounding the last corner with a view of the Zwift pop-up, we climb onto Parliament Street. This is one of the main roads through Harrogate, with lots of bars and cafes, including a place called the Ivy, which I'd strongly recommend, and of course Betty's. Turned into a bike shop called Scotty's by Zwift, Betty's is a complete institution. It serves insanely good cakes and sweet treats and some pretty good Yorkshire-style meals, as well as Swiss delicacies, as its founder was from Switzerland. Be prepared to queue for ages, but it's worth it. And that, my friends, is my guided tour of Harrogate on Zwift. Hope you enjoyed it. Damn, I didn't beat my PR. I wasn't concentrating.